Welcome, everyone, to episode 63 of Nicola Valley Talk, a podcast provided by Tourism Nicola Valley, Experience Nicola Valley, and Experience Merit. Nicola Valley Talk is broadcasted live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time here in Merritt, BC, Canada. Beautiful Merritt, that's what I was trying to say. Excuse me. Nicola Valley Talk is part of Experience Nicola Valley, which just won a national and provincial award for the best community marketing program. My name is Tania Stewart, and I am your eco blogger with Experience Nicola Valley and your host tonight on Nicola Valley Talk. So I'm very excited about tonight, and I want to ask, do you ever wonder if you are being visited by a spirit or haunted by a ghost, or maybe a witch like me? Curious. Are you curious that a loved one might be trying to contact you? Halloween being one of my favorites and personal favorites holiday nights of the year, only seems fitting to me and to have a guest that can share her own experiences about these topics and enlighten us with some of the questions we all want to ask, but may be afraid to. So, this is going to be a spectacular night. So, I want to say, just in time for Halloween night, we are going to be talking about spirits, ghouls, and ghosts with an empath. Her name is Jasmine Ashley, and it's going to be very exciting. And so I would like to welcome Jasmine Ashley to the show tonight. Hi, Jasmine.
Hey, Tania. Thanks for having me.
So, Jasmine, I'm just going to give a little rundown about you right now. And when I'm just so excited about tonight. And this is one of, like I was saying to you earlier, we've never done a Halloween special. So I'm so excited again. So, welcome to the show, Jasmine. Happy Halloween to you as well. You are the owner and founder at Your Voice Matters. You are the owner and CEO of Spiritual Holistic Wellness. You are what most call an empath. An empath is a person who is highly attuned to the feelings and emotions of those around them. And I'll let you delve into that later on with in the show. But Jasmine, for now, could you tell our viewers who is Jasmine Ashley?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show, Tania. Ever since I was a little girl, I have been an empath. For those of you who do not know what an empath is, it's a psychic ability to know and feel deeply other people's emotions, more so than the average person. You are kind of like a human lie detector because you can sense people's energy in the shift. So then when you sense that shift, you know if they're being truthful or not. So that's one of our cool little superpowers. I have also had many experiences with the other side, seeing my deceased loved ones and also people who I have not met here on Earth. So I definitely have an interesting skill set, to say the least. I have always wanted to help people with these gifts that I have, which is why I started my YouTube channel called Jasmine Ashley, which is all about spiritual growth and also about my supernatural experiences that I have had with the other side. It's a great channel for you to learn about spiritual practices and learn more about yourself. Because remember, we are all spiritual beings having human experiences. We live in such a fast-paced world that we don't listen to ourselves enough and follow our own intuition. So my channel will help you awaken your spiritual senses so you can live a more balanced life. With that being said, I am also a level 2 Reiki practitioner, soon to be a Reiki master. So I work with people's energy by helping them unblock their chakras to lead a more balanced and fulfilling life. It's kind of like energy medicine. And it's amazing how our blocked energy affects us and also our past traumas and how they hold us back and also hold our emotions back. These energy blocks leads to dis-ease in the body. So it's important to unblock that energy.
Well, Jasmine, that's amazing. And I tell you, we have a lot of energy that's blocked and to unblock that energy and to also unblock bad energy, right? And we'll get into that too. And I can't wait because I just love that kind of stuff. I love spooky stuff. I love scary haunted stories, and I love Yes. And so, Jasmine, having known you personally for most of your life, um, in your young life, it came as no surprise. And I want to give a little rundown. You are a RN at you went to school at Western Ontario in London, and you became an RN. And that'll go into a little bit of why why you would pick an RN as your career, but it's going to be so interesting. And but anyways, and so it comes as no surprise to me and everyone who knows you why you went into the career path as an RN because of your caring nature and the way you just are. You're a very loving, caring person. So could you share with our audience why is it that you chose this particular career path?
Yeah, so ever since I was a little girl, I've always known that I wanted to help people. And I remember distinctly when I was 4 years old watching TV, it was like an infomercial for African children that have no home and no food. And me watching that, I really felt for those children and I really wanted to help them. But also, I wanted to help people here as well. So I went into nursing because that was the only way I knew how to help people in my brain when I was in high school. So it seemed like the most direct path to doing that, the most well traveled road. So that's kind of why I chose nursing because I really wanted to help people.
And I have to commend you for being a nurse, and you graduated not too long before COVID struck. And I want to give a shout out to you and to all healthcare workers and everyone out there that worked tirelessly through this through that pandemic. You're heroes, right? So personally, Jasmine, I believe that people who become nurses, social workers, healthcare workers, counselors, and etc have a certain higher degree of empathy for people. Feeling empathetic is a bit different to being an empath. Although you are a very caring person with a lot of empathy towards your fellow beings, you're also an empath. Jasmine, could you explain to our audience what an empath is?
Yeah, so let's first start with what is empathy. So, empathy is the ability to share and understand people's emotions. So, when you are an empath, it's basically that, but on steroids. It's the psychic power to tune into the emotional experience of a person, a place, or an animal. You're sensitive to the visible and the invisible. You pick up on body language, tone, or body movements, or even the words people choose to accentuate. And you can sense the vibration or energy shifts around you. So it's a whole nother way of viewing people and the things around you.
Okay, so Jasmine, and as I was doing a little bit of research, I found that it like so when it's not like you just all of a sudden woke up and you were an empath, right? So as a child, many it develops the I guess some signs of an empath as a child, and I'm going to list just five of them, are very sensitive to emotions around you, which can be very confusing for a child. You get stomach aches. You can get health related stresses, excessive feelings of responsibility. You feel like if you can help everyone and change the world, then everyone's going to be happy and you'll be happy, right? Wanting to fix people around you and to make them happy, and excessive caretaking of others. So there are other signs of being an empath, obviously, and stuff like that as a child, and which I assume you carry into your adulthood. Could you share with our audience what it was like growing up with this and maybe not understanding that you were an empath? Feel free to add other signs that help describe and explain this, Jasmine.
Yeah, for sure. So I was always told that I'm too sensitive. And I always found that being in crowds, it could be very overwhelming. And that was because like my emotions were like a roller coaster. I would feel so deeply what everyone around me feeling, and I wouldn't know why. I would think that they were my own emotions and it didn't make sense to me. Also, I always found that babies and animals are always naturally drawn to me. And I found out later that that is like an empathic gift. So, like, even when I'd be at the beach or something, babies would crawl towards me, or animals that would be very afraid of strangers would treat me as if I was their family. And people would always say, wow, like my dog only treats us like this, or something. And also strangers would always easily open up to me. They would just like tell me their life story or their problems, and I was a kid, and it was just like interesting to see that they would just open up to me even though I didn't know who they were. And then also, I always found a lot more peace being around nature and especially running water, which definitely helps ground an empath.
Wow, eh? And I could just assume, like as a child, like the not understanding, and also not just a child
Mhm.
and not understanding, but also the adults around them, and
Yeah.
the other, say, their peers and things like that. I mean, it would be a huge thing to contain as a child, because I mean, as a child, you just don't get cause and effect and things like that, right? And like, bravo to you to come out sane. And um, so Jasmine, why I wanted to touch on your childhood and the fact that you are an RN who works in a hospital, in a very busy hospital. A person could become overwhelmed with all the energy and the chaos, emotions that hang around a hospital, must hang around, like it's like a whoa, and so thick, and all their hospital stuff, let alone an empath such as yourself. Some would ask, why would a person who is more sensitive to the energy around you choose this kind of career? And how do you cope and manage this when you're off the clock, or even on the clock? Sorry.
Oh man, Tanya, that's a good question. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. It can be so draining, it isn't even funny. But I keep reminding myself that I want to help people. But a lot of ways that I have helped myself de-stress is through watching funny YouTube videos. And then I eventually started to decide to do my own because when I noticed that a big, huge de-stressor for me was just talking about spiritual lessons I've learned in my day-to-day life. And that like in itself raised my vibration and helped me get rid of the negative energy that I would get from the hospital. And it's just crazy. Another thing that I've done to help protect myself from all of the negative energy that definitely comes with being in a hospital, like you have to remember people come there when during like their highs and their lows. So like when people are born and when people pass away and everything in between. So it's I have to remember that, and like feeling all of those intense emotions, whether they're good and bad, can definitely be draining. What I have recently learned, though, which has been the most effective, in my opinion, is actually incorporating Reiki on myself.
Mm.
So with Reiki, I can send myself energy in the distance. So, like in the future, to be like, can you please protect me and give me the power to not be affected by the energy around me. And then also to make sure that people who have ill intentions, whether it's being rude to me or saying mean things or whatever, for them to basically have me be invisible to them. And it's been interesting because I had experiences where a patient is like screaming at every single nurse or doctor coming into the room, and they end up being my patient. And I'm freaking out. So I go into the room trying to like put on a brave face. And then they're so nice to me. I'm like, what the heck? And then I leave the room, and then he's yelling at the next person that's coming in, but treating me with respect and kindness. So, like, that kind of made me realize how powerful Reiki can be in my own daily life. And yeah, it makes me feel so much better, and patients are treating me better, and everyone is more coming at me from a place of love and light. And yeah,
Hmm. Well, see, and I do yoga for my
yeah,
self health.
yoga's
I
great.
it is awesome. My only regret is I didn't do it in my 20s, because I'd be amazing at this point. But everything comes at a time, right? Um so not only, Jasmine, are you an empath, a Reiki master, an RN, and 100 YouTube guru, and you're a world traveler. You also have this unique ability, or some might say a curse, that you can connect with spirits. As one of my as one of our relatives, on our native side will used to say to me, "You walk with the dead, or you have the dead in your back pocket." Now you're on one foot in the other side, right?
Mhm.
And so your ability to see, hear, and talk with the dead, knowing that this ability, like I said, is based on a lot of culture. It doesn't pick anyone, and race or religion. Being able to see and hear the ones who have passed, such as shadow people. Well, we'll get into the shadow people, but more the spirits and the ghosts, and the people who may be floundering out there that don't know they're gone. So, Justin, are certain people more acceptable to paranormal activities? And also, could you explain how this works? Like, do they like knock on your door? They're not walking around with chains and stuff like that, eh? And it's not like Scooby Doo movies, eh? You know, things like that. So could you explain to us who and where are you more likely to experience paranormal events, and who are more acceptable to these kind of events?
Yeah, so certain people are more susceptible to connecting with the other side. We all have our own unique gifts and talents that we're blessed with. The thing is, we can also all grow to connect with the other side. The more open minded we are, the better, because a lot of people are very close minded. And a lot of the times, people open up more towards the Halloween season. And a lot of people think that the Halloween season stirs on more of the paranormal and supernatural activity, but the truth is, it's all around us, all day, every day. The only difference is we are more aware and more calm and open to it. So when we're constantly going about our day, our everyday stressors, our mind is closed-minded. So it's harder for spirit to come and connect with us. And the more open we are and the more we kind of like meditate and clear our mind, the more easily the spirits can connect with us. And also following our gut or our intuition and tapping into other psychic abilities helps too when you're more open minded. So everyone can, but not everyone does utilize these talents or
And
gifts.
I'm sure that some people who even recognize or maybe think there's something like I was bringing in the
Mhm.
intro. Have you ever wondered or hear certain things, and then maybe they just shut it off because they don't want to, because it is a very. I mean, we fear death, right? As
Mhm.
generally most society people and people just fear death, and so they might just block it out, right? And
Yeah.
and um, and so while most of us get our knowledge of ghosts and spirits and shadow people and things like that off B movies from the screen and cartoons, as I said, Scooby Doo was my favorite. And in reality, ghosts are not that transparent. Well, kind of in the way of not, they could be kind of transparent, but they're not that cut and dry, right? And like they're not wearing sheets or rattling chains. So what are some of the signs, Jasmine, that a ghost or a spirit or a shadow person or something like that is around?
Yeah, there's a lot of signs that you can look out for. You can look out for butterflies. So butterflies is a huge spiritual animal. So they literally represent the rebirth. So when you think about a caterpillar in a cocoon, they transform into a butterfly. So with us being in our human body, we transform to our spiritual self. So butterflies coming around is a huge sign that your loved ones are here. And also, you can see different apparitions or something you see in the corner of your eye. You see a person, you go to look, and they're gone. That is also another sign. Or hearing footsteps in your house when you're the only one there. They like to play with electricity, so they might flicker the lights, they might turn on or off TVs or your laptops, they might turn on music or play a certain song on the radio for you that is not popular and makes no sense why it's on the radio, but they will use that as a sign if you associate that song with them. And then also hearing like voices, you might hear them say your name or objects moving. So the spirits on the other side can definitely have a sense of humor and they like to play practical jokes, just like we do here in our human form. So they might kind of like move your keys or something, and you're like, where did they go? I swear I put them here. And then they'll move them on you, and you'll go look around the house, tear everything apart. You go to that same spot to see your keys, and they're right there, and you're like, what the heck? They weren't there a minute ago. What's going on? That's probably your loved one on the other side. And also feeling cold spots or energy or like heat changes.
So it's not my memory loss that's going on me. It's just there's some spirits around or some practical cousin that's passed on, playing some good jokes on me.
Yeah.
It's good to know. I'd rather look at it that way than having memory loss or, getting too old and just forgetting everything, right?
Yeah.
It's the spirits that are doing it to me. That is awesome to know that, Jasmine. And the cold spots too. I mean, I know have felt those kind of things and children are so susceptible to knowing, and I think we lose things as we get older because we're more of a we cut things off, like you were mentioning
Yeah,
earlier.
we
We close our minds to everything. And Jasmine, because you work in a hospital as an RN, you're dealing with a lot of people's trauma, and trauma can happen in death, right? When you pass on, trauma. So can you answer this? Because I'm quite curious, and I think someone else sent this question. Is that can a spirit follow you home?
um, yes, spirits can follow you home, but I try to definitely put clear intentions and guidelines to it. And I'll like smudge myself with sage, or literally I'll like tell the spirits, like, no, you have to stay here. You can't come home with me. But also, they don't just stay in one place either. Like, I'll see spirits in the hospital, I'll see them in my house or wherever. They're not just tied to one location unless, like you said, they've had a traumatic death or something and they feel like very drawn to that space. Because a lot of the time, ghosts might stay in that spot and they're not aware that they died. So they'll haunt certain buildings, houses, or places. And then whereas I'm not sure because some people might have the question about difference between spirits and ghosts. So whereas spirits, they're more of a continuation of your soul. It lasts forever. So if you've come to terms with the fact that you have died and you've moved on to the other side, then you're more in like a spirit form. Whereas a ghost might be attached to a certain place or space and not know. And they might kind of get upset if you're in their home because they're not aware that they've died. And that's when you might have like the objects moving in your house or whatever if you moved into a new place and you think it's haunted.
Ooh. And I think some places would be more haunted too. I would like his. Well, we'll get on to that. I'm jumping ahead on my broomstick here.
You were the witch.
I got a new one this year. It's a high powered so I can fly. Yeah. Yeah, I could fly out to Toronto and see you for a night or something like that. That would be kind of cool. So, so could you share, and let's lead on to that with I mean, I love spooky stories and I love a good ghost story. I have a hard time watching with anyone else because I tend to scare everyone in the room because of my screaming and stuff like that. Could you share with everyone and who are watching and such, um, some of your experiences, I guess you could say, a spooky story?
Yeah. So I'll start. I have two like stories kind of prepared. So I'll start with the more nice one. So my first experience was when I was about 6 or 7. My sister and I were home with our babysitter, and I asked if I could sleep in my mom's room because I was missing her. And the way that her room was set up was the bed is like here, and directly across from it is the closet. So on this night, her closet door was open. So I'm sleeping, I wake up, and I sit and look directly at the closet. And I see this white, like, paper bag type thing moving. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, there's no wind. And then it steps out of the closet and starts walking towards me. And I was freaking out. So I hid under the covers to kind of like protect myself. And I felt like I waited under those covers for an eternity. And I finally got the courage to peek out from under the covers. And the thing was standing right beside me, like right beside me. But then she started asking me, where's your mom? And I said how she's out, but she'll be back later. And this person said that she'll come back then to come see her. And she disappeared. But as she disappeared, I saw like hearts and flowers and smiley faces. And I felt unconditional love. So I know whoever this was in the silhouette of a person loved me and meant me no harm. So I went back to sleep and I let my mom know. And later on, fast forward, we were looking at some photo albums and I saw her in one of the photos and it turned out to be my great grandma. And turns out she was visiting my mom every single year on the anniversary of her death, which was November 11th. But on that time when my mom wasn't there, I guess my great grandma knew that she was okay and she didn't have to continue visiting. So that was the last time she came on November 11th to come see if she was okay.
Wow. So
Yeah.
I mean, that could be spooky if it was somebody else there and was witnessing or a feeling. That is, well, I guess it would give you spooky feelings of chills and stuff. But amazing, to have that. Like, I think,
Mhm.
it's just that's a great story, Jasmine. And
Oh, thank you.
and that's a good story. I mean, with a spirit, a loved one coming to you. So I'm going to veer off a little bit because I just thought to fit time in with this question. But there are some angry beings out there, and shadow people being one of them. And also, people love Ouija boards. And I know that people dabbling in that kind of stuff can be dangerous. And so, can you touch base on what are shadow people? Some are good and some are bad, and some might be just observing. I don't know. And is the Ouija boards bad?
Yeah, so there are different types of shadow people. Like I've had experiences where they're just walking around the house, doing no harm. It's just like a nothing experience. But I've also had two negative ones, one in which I'll touch up on here. So I work at the hospital, as everybody now knows. I'm a registered nurse. So it was on night shift, and I was coming off of my break, and I had to fill up my water bottle. And I was walking down the hallway where the water station is, and I noticed this like giant dark silhouette of a person at the end of the hallway. And I decided to just ignore it, not pay any attention to it, because if anything is true, it's negative entities feed off of your fear. So I was not letting this entity have any fear at all. So I just was filling my water bottle, minding my own business. And then I started to get like pains and feel cold starting at my feet. And it was working all the way up my body. And then it started getting to my head and I felt super dizzy, nauseous, like I was going to pass out. I've never passed out before, but this feeling would be the closest to that. And I knew that if I passed out, it wouldn't be good. So I started running down the hallway. And each step I took away from this entity, the more myself I felt. And when I got to the nurses' station, the nurses were like, Jasmine, like, are you okay? You look like you just saw a ghost. Like, classic. And I just like needed to have a moment to recuperate. And with that experience, because I very, very rarely ever have bad experiences. And when like the important thing is that you have to protect yourself like from that. So raising your vibration, so focusing on things like love, gratitude, abundance, and also just like not opening yourself up to the dark side, because dark entities feed off of you when you are at your lowest. So if you're going through something depressing, whether it's a divorce, you're losing your house, or whatever it is, when you're at your low, that's when they show up. So it's important to always keep yourself at a high vibration and do things that fuel your soul, whatever it is that you love. And that'll keep them away, because any spirit that is of love and light will never try to scare you, never try to hurt you. So just open yourself up to the good and protect yourself from the bad, whether that be through meditation or doing things you love, practicing gratitude, or crystals and essential oils.
Wow. So in a way, if you're projecting dark energy and bad energy, you can actually welcome an uninvited guest, right, into your home. And if that
Yeah,
happens, how do you get rid of them? Like, get out.
yeah. Yeah, so like I said, they like to latch on to dark places and spaces, mentally, emotionally, physically. So the best way to get rid of them is to, once again, raise your vibration and do things that you love. So you bring more love, that whole frequency into your life. And also you can do smudging. So you can smudge white sage in your house to get, if you're feeling like there is a presence in your house that you just don't like, or even after you and your loved one, it could be your spouse or your kids, if you've had a fight, that negative energy can stay in your house. So you can smudge your house after any fight, and just with anything, intention is key. So you can say things like a little mantra like, only spirits of love and light are allowed. All else must leave, or whatever it is that you want to say. And you go to all the different corners, you smudge everything, and then you let a door open or a window out so that energy can leave.
Wow.
As far as Ouija boards go, though, because you're asking me about Ouija boards, and I forgot to answer that. My advice is to not dabble. I know in the Halloween spirit, people they're more open to wanting to try. Maybe they're missing their loved ones and they want to find that connection. And the best way that they know how is to do it with a Ouija board. But the thing with Ouija boards is you never know who it is you're talking to. And dark energies on the other side love to impersonate your loved ones, even though they're not them. And you never know what you're inviting into your home when you're using a Ouija board or any of those channeling tools. So it's important to, in my opinion, not use them. Whenever I was in high school and I went to a high school party and people would sometimes bring out Ouija boards, I was the first one out the door. I didn't want any part of it because I'm more susceptible to the other side. So I didn't want them to latch onto me because I could feel them or see them. And it's important to know what you're dealing with. And Ouija boards are normally not good news. You can obviously have good experiences with anything, but I wouldn't want to take the chance of having a negative experience, having that opening a portal into your house.
Ooh, that would be horrible.
Yeah.
And I know Ouija boards, and you know who made them was Hasbro, which is ironic.
Yeah.
Hasbro.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
good marketing.
Yeah, yeah, and which, I think dabbling and on our native side, I do know that you can carry spirits. They can walk with you. They can be behind you or be over you, sucking your energy and
Yeah.
like that. And it's probably not even, maybe you welcomed it in through your energy or Ouija boards, stuff like that, right? Because there's so many paramount, um, uh, which is going to lead into my next question to you, is there, since I guess it's been throughout history trying to talk to the past, to the dead, and Egyptian mythology, their gods and stuff like that, and deal with the dead and stuff like that, right? So New Age style sacred travel or metaphysical touring is a growing branch of tourism, particularly in countries like Egypt with strong ancient civilization pedigrees. So, Jasmine, Canada being such a young little country, and we are, but especially where you live, and I want to point that out. BC is younger than Ontario. Ontario has a lot of historical, I know, haunted places because we used to watch Haunted Canada. But and Canada having such a strong, long Indigenous history, is it possible to develop a strong physical tourism sector here in Canada?
I would say yes. Our Earth has been here for a long time. Even though we think of Canada as a young country, the Earth that we live on has been here way longer than us. And also there are such thing as energy vortexes. So in BC, actually, there are a lot of energy vortexes. So it's a place where a lot of spiritual people go to connect with their higher self. So I believe that we have a lot of energy here in Canada. And I think that we could offer a lot in our metaphysical touring. And I think our Indigenous people could definitely have a huge part in this because they have been suppressed for so long. They have not been able to practice their spiritual practices or anything like that. And I think it would be a great way to promote their spiritual practices and everything and give them a voice also.
Wow, and I never thought of that. And I'm well, I'm native. I never thought about the um the spiritual vortex and how such hauntings could happen when it or things like that, because I do know here in Merritt that we have a lot of areas surrounding the town of of spirits and stuff like that, because a lot of times in history, I'm going off topic here, sorry people, but in history is that all the tribes used to come together in war, and also with war comes death, which comes spirits, which come all sorts of things. And when you start taking away their traditional cultures and stuff like that, there's an uprising, or kind of like they're not at peace, I guess that's what I would say. um right, would you agree with that, Jasmine? Like, not being at peace is one of the hugest things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Like our indigenous community, they're super spiritual people and they have long tapped into their ancestral lines to communicate with spirit and their
Mhm,
loved ones on the other side, whether it's after a war or whatever in their like their practices.
mhm.
So I think, and even they rely on them for their medicine journey or whatever path they've gone on. They've always relied on the ancestors and the wisdom from them. And I think energetically, Canada needs to pay this forward to the Indigenous community and allow them to get their roots back and be celebrated for it. And
Mhm.
I believe they can offer a whole lot, not only to Canada, but the whole
Well,
world on their spiritual path because they've been silenced for far too long.
definitely, Jasmine, and that's a whole another talk show. And just quickly, so being with you being with strong connections to the spirit world, the veil between life and that world is very thin for you. Sometimes you're probably more thinner than other times throughout the year. Um, with the spiritual world. Could you tell us, was there another story you had, a spooky tale, or one of your experiences, or did
Yeah, so I can share another story. So it's actually quite funny. I'm a nurse who works in a hospital. Never once did it ever occur to me that hospitals could be haunted. That and I never even put two and two together. Like it was never a thought when I was in nursing school. So luckily a lot of the spirits at my hospital are super friendly and they like to play practical jokes on me. There's this lady that I call the lady in the pink pajamas that when I started orientation at the hospital, I never wanted to let my coworkers know that I saw spirits and everything because I thought they'd think I was nuts. Like I'm in a science-led field. They like concrete evidence-based practice. Like spirits are not evidence-based for the most part. There have been other studies, but they do not know about these studies. So I was charting, and all I knew about this one particular room, because it was my colleague's room, was that there's 3 elderly patients in there that are all high fall risks. So their bed alarms are on. So if they get out of bed, we can help them so they don't fall and possibly break a hip, because that would be horrible. So I'm charting and I see this elderly lady poking her head out of the room wearing pink pajamas. So I stand up and go like, oh my goodness, like how did she not set off the alarms? So I go to go help her, but she's gone. So I sit back down. And this happened quite a few times before my coworkers were like, Jasmine, why do you keep getting up and sitting down? And I was like, well, there's a lady in the pink pajamas. And she kept making me think that one of my patients got out of bed. But yeah, she likes to play those jokes and she'll like pull the call bells and stuff. A lot of the times patients won't ring the call bell and it'll be like an unknown reason why the call bells are going off, which is spooky.
it is, and that what a neat story. I'm sure there's
Mhm.
other scary ones out there, but we don't want hospitals to be a scary place, right? Um,
No.
Jasmine, I want to ask this with you. Okay, you do know about you're quite aware of Experience Nicola Valley and this
Mhm.
talk show and stuff like that. Um, what do you think this program brings to not only tourism and visitors, but to the businesses of Merritt, and how this platform could help communities with tourists throughout the world, with smaller communities, because we know larger communities such as Toronto get a lot of funding for tourism, but smaller communities seem to be left out. So what do you think of the Experience Nicola Valley program and how this can benefit communities?
Yeah, I think the Experience Nicola Valley show is able to reach so many people on the internet who may not have otherwise known about Merit or the shops within it. So I think it definitely does a good job at bringing in tourism from the outside. I think a lot of small towns could definitely use Experience Nicola Valley as inspiration for them to bring tourism and information to their community. And it's always awesome to learn about small towns. Like being from a big city, I never really knew the small town feel. Like when I remember the first time I saw tumbleweed, I didn't know like tumbleweed was a thing. I thought it was just from like old like Western films or something. And I remember my cousin Kristen thinking I was absolutely nuts because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like the old Western thing, that thing that always rolls on the road. And she's like, tumbleweed? We have a lot of it. So like other people might not know things about small towns, especially in BC if you're from Ontario. And wow, I hope I don't sound silly just saying that. So I think it's great because it lets us know what kind of restaurants, what kind of food and drinks or shops we can go to. And it definitely has opened up my horizons. Like that, I forget the shop name, but the one for the Bannock, it is so good. I always go there.
Kalua or Kukalua. I'm saying it wrong. Yes.
Oh my
We got
goodness. The Bannock is so good.
Yes.
I love learning about your community.
And it is great because Merritt, I mean, we're in a community with 5 highways around us, and we're in the interior. I mean, really, there's so much to provide here. So, Jasmine, before I let you go, we could talk for hours and hours about the spirit world and everything. I feel so I had to leave out some questions. So I might want to have you back and talk about Reiki and stuff like that. You did live here. You lived quite a few years of your life here in Merritt. I just want to put that out to our audience. And you come here every summer because this is one of your favorite places. Then you have a grandfather here, and you have family here. And so before I let you go, would you like to touch base on anything that I might have left out?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience because a lot of times we get so wrapped up in our daily stressors, we forget that. And we're all here for a purpose, for a reason. And yeah, and also if you wanted to learn more about spiritual growth or the supernatural and more of my ghost stories, I do have a YouTube channel called Jasmine Ashley. It would mean the absolute world to me if you checked it out and subscribed to my channel. I'm also opening up my Reiki business, as I said earlier, and I would love to work with you and the viewers' beautiful energy. And I can also do distance Reiki, so that's not a problem if you're not near the Toronto area. And I would love to help you overcome your blocks and past traumas that you may have suppressed deep within yourself. Before you start to manifest the dis-ease in your body. Wellness is all about balancing your mind, body, and spirit. So if you are ready, let me help you be the best version of yourself.
Wow, Jasmine, I would like to say Tiffany Gottwillinger. I think you know who she is.
Hey, Tiffany.
And Melvina White also said hello, Jasmine. And Ouija boards used to be a party favorite. Can you imagine that? Eh? Oh, what a great gift! Eh? Okay, give that to me, Ouija board. And also a lot of information, Jasmine. There was a spirit that just walked by, I think.
In the form of JoJo.
But I thank you from the bottom of my heart. There it went again. For joining us tonight. And yes, I need to have you back for talk about your Reiki and kudos to you for everything. You're such a well-grounded person for all your the things that you being an empath and plus being able to hear and being and now a Reiki and that RN and so much more. So if you want to stick around, we can debrief and maybe share some ghost stories with each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you,
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I hope you're having an absolutely amazing day, and I'm sending you lots of light and love.
Thank you, Jasmine. Well, talk about a great show, I tell you. Yeah, I don't know if I would want to have that insight or have that ability all the time like that, and let alone being a nurse. I would jump at every shadow. But thank you again, Jasmine Ashley, for joining us tonight on Nicola Valley Talk. And thank you to all the viewers out there. And Halloween coming up, please stay safe. Do not cross the road, stay on one side, and go in groups. Do not eat candy until you get home. You know the old drill. Lock your dogs up safely if there are fireworks this year. I'm not sure. And I thank you to the viewers for watching Nicola Valley Talk. Please continue to spread the word about Nicola Valley by following, sharing, and commenting on our Experience Nicola Valley Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and or YouTube pages. Make sure to tune in next week, October 28th, when Off the Clock, City Talk with Melva White, and Tony Luck will be our guest on Nicola Valley Talk, hosted by Tom Reynolds. Remember, every Thursday night, join us same time, same place, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, Nicola Valley. And remember, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rethink, because merit matters, as does the world. My name is Tania Stewart. I am your eco blogger on Experience Nicola Valley and your host on Nicola Valley Talk. And thanks for joining us tonight. And I am going to fly off on my broom and get the spooktacular out of here. Thank you very much and good night. Thank you very much and good night. Sorry.